I'm set, Sam, so just let it go. Good.
My bad.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening.
Hi, Erica.
All set?
I'm on my way. I'm just stuck in traffic per usual. I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Okay. Are we broadcasting now? Okay. This is a call to order of a special meeting of the Bridgeport Board of Education. Today's date is
18th.
Wednesday, May 18th, and the time is noted as being 5:31 p.m. Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll?
Thank you. John Weldon,
Present.
Bobby Brown,
Present.
Sybil Allen,
Present.
Christine Baptiste Perez, Albert Benahan,
Present.
Erica Castillo,
Present.
Michael Macaron. Present. Joseph Sokolovic,
Present.
Joseph Lombard, present.
Okay, thank you. So the sole business item on this agenda is discussion and possible action concerning the employment, performance, or evaluation of Michael Testani as a public officer or employee of the Bridgeport Board of Education. Discussion of this item may qualify for executive session. However, Mr. Testani, as you are aware, you have a right as the employee being discussed to require that any or all of this discussion be held in the open meeting. Are you exercising that right or defer to us?
I'm fine in having this discussion in open session.
I will take that to mean that you want this in open session.
I would.
It's fair enough. Okay, so the impetus of this was Mr. Testani sent an email regarding his contract and provision in it that allows for us to enter into a new 3-year agreement with him. Some of you newer members may not be aware. Under Connecticut statute, superintendent's employment contract may not be more than 3. So now you've got 2 years left basically on this current contract. And if he wants us to continue into the future, the only way to do that would be to enter into a new 3-year agreement that would commence July 1, 2022 and take us out to 2025. So that's the premise here. Since then, there's been discussion about any new agreements being contingent on a performance evaluation. And to that end, uploaded in the portal, but in the event that you don't have it with you, I've got a copy of the evaluation template that was used previously, and everything's been updated to just say 21-22. Just from are there any questions so far?
Will we be voting tonight?
No.
We're just discussing.
I envision this as being, creating a roadmap of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
Okay.
Okay. So, I just want to ask would people be comfortable at this point, committing to providing Mr. Testani a new 3-year agreement with any other terms and conditions being contingent on a performance evaluation that we would conduct? In other words, do we know enough that we'd like him to be here for at least the next 3 years and everything else is contingent on this? Thoughts on that?
I think so.
Yeah, I do.
I think so. I don't know.
Agreed.
Okay, Mr. Lombard says he likes that.
Yeah,
Sybil says she likes that.
I do.
Erica says, Mike
Yes.
says, and Joe's got his hand up, but he hasn't vocalized.
Yes, as before,
And like I said, this wasn't a vote. We're just are we of a like mind?
rather than have contingencies, I still think the cart's before the horse. Mr. Testani does have the right to ask under the contract for it to be extended. But we have the right to do an evaluation and have data provided to us. And not saying this is a possibility or even realistic, but suppose a future superintendent or anybody gets zeros on their evaluation and we extended the contract 2 months prior.
Well, here's another thing, because the way this contract is structured, it has us doing his evaluation
Within
July and August. And it talks about a renewal in, before June 30th. So it's, admittedly, the way it's put together seems a little odd. And maybe going forward, we can address that. So it's a little less cart before the horse.
Right. I see no harm in doing it this contractual cycle.
No, I'm just saying, but then we'll eliminate this discussion if we fix that
Right.
for the future.
So I would be amiable to entering into discussions with the attorney to look at the whole contract, inclusive of the start times, the date, evaluation dates.
That's fine. But I'm just saying, we go through this every year
Right.
and it's always this way. And then we say, why are we doing it this way? And we never change it.
But just to be clear, I will support going into negotiation sessions with us and the lawyer without Mr. Testani present to develop a negotiating strategy, because it makes no sense for the person you're negotiating with to be sitting there with us in the negotiation strategy session.
That's right. I know that.
And we go,
But
I just question if we do know that, because $30,000 was dropped on the table, not a lawyer even.
getting a little beyond.
I just want to be clear.
The original question was,
Right.
are people at least comfortable that they would want Mr. Testani here? That's
It would be a simple yes after the evaluation.
all right. Well, for you, it's not simple, but it seems like for many others. it is.
What's the question before?
The question is, I'll let the record reflect that Ms. Baptiste Perez has had a meeting. I was explaining that under Connecticut law, a superintendent's contract cannot be made for more than 3 years. In the superintendent's current contract, you have the ability to enter into a new agreement for a new 3-year period prior to June 30th. And I just posed the question that since this meeting was organized, people have talked about performance evaluation. Let the record reflect that. Okay. People have talked about conducting a performance evaluation. And so the question was, people comfortable enough with Mr. Testani that they would be interested in retaining him for at least the next 3 years, but that the terms and conditions of the contract beyond that be contingent on a performance evaluation passed around. And it was just a general consensus. People were saying that they were comfortable with that. And then the next question is, this is did one of these find its way down to this? You have that. This is the evaluation template, which we've used previously. It's something that we could use again. I would recommend we use it. There's been nothing else that we've been wanting to hold his feet to the fire about beyond what's in this evaluation. But you had your hand up previously. Say something.
Sure. So there's been discussion in the past, and I'm sure there'll be discussion tonight about what has or has not been done in the past. Everything that I've been trying to request and everything in the process is nothing out of the ordinary. Speaking to superintendents of the state of Connecticut, try to, I articulate the best way possible. today is May 18th, as the record reflected. An evaluation is, and feedback from the evaluation is to help with professional growth and development of the superintendent that I am and would like to become even better at performance of my job. But on May 18th, board has any questions as to whether to continue beyond the next 2 years. I don't know what I would be able to do in the next 4 weeks till the end of the school year in order to shape that differently. It's the end of the school year. I mean, this is the common practice to separate the two. The same way we would separate ending the terms of employment for any educator would be before April 1st, even though the evaluation is done in June. So it's just trying to get us on a normal routine and cycle that is formed as pretty much every other district in the state. So, I mean, I'm not saying that the performance evaluation should be ignored. I think that is a critical point in providing feedback for growth and development professionally. But I don't know what would be provided at that time that would be contingent upon extending, as they call, someone we try to pick an evergreen clause and all these other things that happen. That's just
So let me be clear. It says here that by the end of the first year. But we're 6 weeks out from the end of the first year of your contract. So I think that's why we're having this discussion, because if these folks want to, is someone trying to say something?
No, she's not.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. We have time to go through this exercise before the end of this contract year. So we've got 6 weeks to go through this exercise. So I wouldn't be too concerned if I were you. I think hearing, what most of the people here said, they were all nodding their heads. So I think for now, that should suffice. And Mr. Macaron.
Yeah, but what Mr. Testani is saying that because we're so close to the end of the year,
Mhm.
what more can he do to prove to us?
Yes.
Now, can we not push this back to maybe March 1 to start to?
Well, I only did this in response to his email about this, which was a couple of years ago.
You know what I mean?
No,
Why not?
March 1 of what? To push what
Yeah,
back?
March 1 of what?
March 1 of the current year, maybe we would have a more
Well, here,
ability to find out.
okay, so that might be a good thing to, when we talk about developing a new contract, to put some kind of provision in there that sets it in stone like that. So that if you do want to have some sort of preliminary, hey, it's March 1st or a mid-year check-in, that kind of thing, we can do that.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's a good idea. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Respectfully, when you evaluate the principal, first year principal, you're still a relatively new superintendent. Right? This is nothing based on your performance or anything, but before you extend a principal's contract or even a new teacher's contract, you don't do it before the evaluations are done. You want to be sure these are effective teachers. You want to be sure these are effective principals before we lock ourselves into something where we get into a tenure situation with a teacher or superintendent or principal may have. I'm saying it's often the case or the case here. Once again, I'll preface that before locking them into tenure. It's harder to get rid of them. Now, what could you do in the next 4 weeks? You could rest on your laurels. You could be confident you did a good job, and you could be confident that it will be reflected in your evaluation. And you could be confident in your board members enough that we will be able to see that you did a good job, give you a good evaluation, and then extend your contract. If you don't have that confidence in the board to be able to look at your accomplishments or the confidence in yourself that you have those confidence, abilities, and accomplishments, I don't know where we are as a board.
So I think, like I said before, this is a good discussion to have when we're talking about drafting a new contract. If you want to incorporate those kinds of elements in there, but at this point, that's not, I don't think, what we're here for.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Baptiste Perez, you had your hand up.
Okay, so the statute says upon election and notification of employment or
What are you
reemployment.
looking at?
Connecticut statute, section 10157, superintendent's relation to the local regional board. It states upon election and notification of employment or reemployment, superintendent may request and the board shall provide written contract of employment that includes, but is not limited to, and includes the term of such office of the superintendent. Okay, so Mr. Testani has made that request. However, I recall, as several of us are new board members, and we were all required to attend the welcome retreat during our CAPE training, is that it's not going to send a negative message to the district if a superintendent's contract is not renewed for another 3-year period. And as I recall from that very same CAPE training that we all attended or should have attended, it's only alarming to the district if a superintendent is within his very last year of contract and it's not renewed. Furthermore, I want to add that it does include in the statute that the board shall evaluate the performance of the superintendent. And this being our one employee and a third of us being completely new to the board, what are we going to evaluate him on aside from personality? We need that information first.
Okay.
And so,
This is where I'm going.
huh?
This is where I'm going with this.
This is what?
This is where I'm going with this.
Okay.
So an evaluation form has been distributed. And I think we need to decide what we're going to expect from the superintendent to be able to evaluate him on this. Last year, he gave a presentation. I would want to see a presentation that addresses all of these things on this evaluation. Last year, it was 90 minutes. I don't think we need to go that far this go around, but as long as he addresses all of these categories and subcategories and how he has, how he feels he has successfully achieved each of these things. And then we make our determination whether we agree with it or not. So I think we need to establish a time frame when he does that. Is that 2 weeks, a month from now? And what kinds of things do we want to see? You may want to think about it and reconvene, but I think we need to start with those very basics. What kind of timeframes are we looking at? What do we want to see from him? Does anyone have any?
Mr. Chair, I have a suggestion, seeing as we do have 3 brand new board members, and when we developed this in conjunction with the superintendent, it was a joint effort, and the 3 new board members had absolutely no input on this. We should see if they're comfortable with this evaluation format,
So I passed
to
it.
have anything to add, and maybe call another meeting in conjunction if they have anything they would like to change in this, and in conjunction with the superintendent, develop whatever new questions they may want to add.
I have something to say about that.
Joe?
Okay. The only thing I feel about that, Joe, is that this was kind of the guidepost that he conducted the last year on. And so to change this now, I can see we could change it for next year. That's a good idea to get the input. But I feel like if you're working toward one particular guidepost and then 3 weeks before the evaluation, it's changed, I don't think that that's really fair. So again, I think your suggestion is a good one to include the input from all board members for going for the next one, but not for this one. That's fine.
Ms. Baptiste.
I would like to have input onto the evaluation. I think one of the things to be mindful of is how other superintendents are evaluated, other superintendents in similar size districts and geographics, and to come up with a standard in that particular way. I don't want my ability to evaluate him to be foreclosed if something other board members voted on, because I'm here now. So when I'm going.
I agree. And I think that should be the case.
And by that, Greater City Schools, CAPE, all provide notes, tips available to board members on how to effectively evaluate their superintendents. And so being able to utilize the resources that are available to us on how is not only a fair standard, because this is something I learned in teaching and learning is we may think this is what the criteria is, but to be able to move on to a gold standard, we need to change your perspective a little bit, or push a little harder. I want to be able to do the same thing here. And I want to see how other superintendents are being evaluated. Why haven't we asked particular questions? Why are we not looking for it? So I think this may need to be modified, but I would like to consult with other resources that's available to us before doing so.
So this would,
Just say something.
this firstly, there's a couple of things. This was developed based on a rubric that is specifically for superintendent evaluations. I can't remember the name of it. What was it called?
Yeah, that was developed and utilized, that's utilized in many districts throughout the state.
I can't think of the name of it.
It eludes me right now.
I'll find it.
Yeah, I think it was the superintendent's, or I know you pulled it from a source and I have no.
Yeah, we didn't just come up with this. This was pulled directly from a superintendent evaluation rubric that is a standard. Also, doing this the way we do it, we are actually, this is not common. Most districts just have an executive session where they have a discussion with their superintendent. They talk about the things that they felt were good. They talk about the things they felt were not good. And that's all it's based on. So we actually are going above and beyond what most districts do. Go ahead.
But John, the reason that we're quote unquote going above and beyond is because we're legally mandated. Bridgeport falls into a particular section where because our school population is more than 10,000, there's 3 or more public schools in the municipality and 2,000 or more residents, students, we have to go about it differently. Not every school district in Connecticut falls into that particular bracket. So the way they evaluate their superintendents will be different. That's why I said utilizing resources that geographic will be helpful, because you're saying a smaller school district that's legally required and moves differently with their superintendent. And from the way I read it in the statute, they can even share a superintendent. We're going to compare apples to grapes.
Okay, I'm just saying we pulled this from
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Castillo.
may I be recognized?
Yes, I just recognized you.
Oh, sorry. So my question, I agree with you, Christine. I think the only thing that we need to be mindful of is if we do alter or change the evaluation form as it is right now, that it's still done with regard to referencing, some what's the word? Like governing or legitimate resource to be able to make that change. I don't think that any of the changes to the form should be, based on our opinions, just to minimize, unconscious bias or any level of bias really in adjusting the form. So I'm open to that. I just want to make sure that it's done with diligence and have supportive resources and research and like, what's the word? References really to support whatever changes or additions we decide to make. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think so.
Alderman.
Yeah, I'd like to paraphrase from evaluation 8A. Anybody can read between the lines. And the board shall evaluate.
Are you?
That's 8A,
Of what?
the contract.
Of the contract.
Contract.
It's an evaluation.
The board, yeah, under evaluation.
8A.
Correct. The board shall evaluate and assess in writing the performance of the superintendent at least annually during the term of the agreement. And an agreement with guidelines and criteria to be mutually agreed upon between the board and superintendent. The format shall be reasonably objective and shall contain the criteria. The board shall meet and discuss the evaluation format with the superintendent and attempt in good faith to agree on the development and adoption of a mutually agreeable evaluation format. That is what we were suggesting here. It's not untoward, it's not unheard of. It's actually written into the contract that we meet and mutually agree upon
I know that.
format.
We did that.
Yeah, I know, but the comment was made that we shouldn't change and we can't change.
Well, no, but I think what he's saying, what people are saying is that, these are the things that were agreed to, and now it's May. And how appropriate is it to substantively change this at this point?
What was it at this point in time last year? It was nothing. It was a whole,
Last
it's a
year.
whole different, it was a one sheet page.
Oh, was it?
It was when he went from,
There was a cover sheet. There was a cover sheet that summarized.
I'm missing it again.
It gave everybody scores in a table, showed averages, but it was all backed up with
No,
everybody.
that's when we used it for the very first time.
It was agreed upon earlier, much earlier in the school year.
Right.
Anyway,
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back on the dates of that. Are you positive about this? I seem to remember about the same exact time, the same exact argument we had.
all right, let's do this.
It was agreed upon, I believe, because it was brought up late, it was January.
Sounds right. So,
Should be done at the beginning of the school year.
Regardless, if the new board members have something new, as long as it fits into this criteria, I mean, if they're gonna come up with something, is Mr. Testani kind to animals? That's way out there. If they're gonna come up to something that's not on here, Mr. Testani is striving to raise test scores so-and-so, that would be valid, and that's something he should be doing anyway.
if it's something that he should reasonably be doing,
Right,
then
that's what I'm saying.
think that-
They need to have the input on
So-
those things as long as it fits in the body of the contract.
yeah, I've heard you say the same thing 3 times.
That's
So, is that something everybody wants to do? Do you want to allow for people to come up with some suggested modifications to this? Is there a motion to that
We're
effect?
not gonna modify it now.
No.
We won't have time.
Yeah, to reconvene. So does somebody want to make a motion to allow for, say, a week to allow members to come up with additions or modifications that they think should be made to this? By Ms. Brown,
Second.
second by Mr. Benahan.
Can we,
Motion to amend.
yes,
Motion
And
to amend the motion on the floor after consultation with CABE and Greater City Schools, because getting consultation from what evaluations are being used.
if, I don't think we need to codify that to the motion. If you want to call CABE and
And
say,
CABE says they're not available after our meeting, I want to be able to have time. I think that there was an issue in governance that took a while to get in contact with CABE, and more than 1 week was provided.
okay, so how much time do you want?
Need at least 2 weeks.
You want 2 weeks?
Mr. Chair.
Motion to modify the motion on the table for 2 weeks.
Okay. I have some
And I'll second that.
Okay,
For discussion purposes, can we schedule a board, what you call it? Professional development with CABE, specifically around contract evaluation? Evaluations for the superintendent? And rather than set a hard and firm date for 2 weeks, maybe a week after the meeting with CABE.
What is our deadline for all this?
technically, we are supposed to evaluate him within 60 days from July 1st,
After July 1st?
So we're
after July 1st.
beyond this.
But we're doing it beforehand
After July.
because,
Oh, after July.
We're doing this beforehand because people are of the mindset that we should do this before entering into a new contract. So if that's the case, if you just want me to schedule a workshop with Kate about this before you go any further with this, you want to just do that?
Would that be acceptable to everybody?
And so I understand this was part of the original discussion. No decision would be made about anything, not even renewing or contingencies until after the evaluation takes place. Is that what we're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's the way it was going to be. We were just getting a consensus that as it stands now, seems most of the board members are not averse to a new contract, a new 3-year contract. That's where we are at this point.
So just so I understand, excuse me, I was up at 4:30 this morning.
I was up at 4.
Okay, we're asking to give us examples of or how we should develop our evaluation of our superintendent. Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a presentation of how,
Am I right?
Isn't that how we, like, the first time we did it, we had an example of what
We did.
wanted to evaluate.
and that's what this was based on.
And then, so
My
then,
question is, yeah,
so along with that then, so after developing a new evaluation, the superintendent will have how long to prepare a presentation based on an evaluation?
I don't know, we should, look,
Well, I mean, that's what we're talking about.
let's just have the CABE workshop. We can ask them, but they'll be able to give us some good guidance. I personally think we're starting to get a little,
I mean, I just think it's worthwhile to just bring to the table that, and it's perfectly fine, but I'm just bringing it up, that it may be that the presentation by the superintendent that we use to evaluate based upon potentially a new tool could be far out in the future. There's no deadline that we're working under. So the request was made in May, but our response could be after his presentation, which could be a month, 2 months, 3 months out. Okay.
so I'll arrange a workshop with CABE.
We have to vote on that motion?
No, it's a call.
No, I mean,
We're paying
there
members.
was a motion. on
Can I
it.
say one thing?
Go ahead.
The tool is based on the goals for the year. Those goals are my goals. Mutually agreed upon, just like we, just like with an administrator, mutually agreed upon goals. The fact that there's elections that happen at offset times of the year, that's not my problem. I'm going to be very blunt. It's not my problem that elections are in November, board changes in December. The school year starts in September and it ends in June. So if there's going to be the development and agreed upon different goals in a rubric, that has to happen next year.
That's what I was saying.
I know.
That's why I wanted to
That
take a vote.
rubric was developed,
No.
the competencies that are set forth for the standards for superintendents. It's no different than New Haven, Hartford, Waterbury, Darien, Greenwich. I mean, every district, every superintendent has the same standards to pull from. There's not different ones because leadership is leadership. Whether you're leading a district with 5,000 students or 20,000 students, you're basing your feedback and evaluation on leadership.
So we have an amendment that's been made and seconded.
Could we refresh the,
Restate your amendment? Unless you want to withdraw.
I think we should clean up the whole thing. The new motion.
Everybody wants to withdraw whatever.
make a motion that's on the floor that I am amending, so that way it's just clear for the record as well.
So the motion on the floor was to conduct a performance, or not even sure now. Does
No.
anybody else remember?
Can we just start from scratch? It'd probably be easier than this. Because it seems like we got a consensus that we're gonna go to CABE.
No, so
It
the,
was to incorporate the
it was
new
to,
board,
it was to.
board members' input.
Provide, yeah, it was a motion to allow for modification of this performance evaluation and to allow a week to do that. That was the main motion.
The amendment,
You amended it. I
the
believe-
original amendment I made was to allow for 2 weeks
2 weeks.
in order to consult with CAVE and Greater City Schools on additional,
I think,
how to evaluate.
process on the overall.
You made an amendment to the amendment technically stating that CAVE should just do a training with us.
No, I just said that they could do that.
Well,
There wasn't a motion, and I don't
Okay.
have a motion to engage Kate, but I can just make that arrangement. So that was the amendment, and that was your second.
And then I had the further, I didn't actually state it as an amendment, but amendment to the amendment would be to, no, I'm lost. And to, after, 1 week after I have the evaluation,
So that's more,
after our meeting with CAVE, anybody who has new questions or new criteria to be put in, to send them to you, and we have a meeting about those.
that's really in place of that amendment.
Yeah, I know, that's why it probably would be easier.
All right, so that's the amendment. We're going to take 2 weeks to allow for this. That's the amendment.
the amendment is 2 weeks to consult with CAVE and Greater City Schools. The
All in-
amendment is to allow 2 additional weeks.
No, I don't think it has to
You
be.
withdrew that. I think you.
Yeah, I don't think at this point it's necessary, as long as we're doing a meeting with CAVE. I guess you could schedule it at your leisure, but we want to do it, we don't want to wait too long. We want to have a time limit, especially for the, because I'm okay with this. I don't think I have any additional questions. But the new board members, they may have one. So I would just ask them to be mindful of the timeline, get them in, and
So, all in favor of the amendment?
I,
Aye.
Staying.
No. Okay, passes. That's the amended motion.
I'm also going to abstain. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. I just was very confused.
Yeah, it's a mess.
I'm very
It's a
confused.
mess.
It's really a mess.
Competing amendments and they're ones on top of
there's
the,
only,
So now the.
which amendment are we talking about?
So now the motion is same as I previously stated, but now it's 2 weeks. And we're-
That the new board members would have 2 weeks to potentially change to this.
That's not what it is anymore.
To modify, let me finish.
Well, the amendment passed already.
The amendment passed. So now the main motion, the amended motion is we're going to allow for 2 weeks for this to potentially be modified based on what we learned from CAVE.
Okay.
And I guess you also want Great City Schools, but I don't,
Yeah.
think we can get a presentation from them, but you're
and-
certainly free to write them.
And that modification is going to be used for this year's
Right,
evaluation.
that's what I wanted to discuss.
It could.
we would have to vote on it as a board.
So that's what I think we need to make clear, though. I think that's what this motion is saying, that it would be used. I think we need to be clear about that, and this is my discussion, but I already said, to change it, I said this the first time, we need to get input, we need to have this be a growing, evolving document. That's obvious, that's essential, but I feel strongly that to use that revised, modified document for this year's evaluation is not appropriate. So that's why when the time comes, I'm going to vote no for this amendment.
You're going to vote no for any revised document.
For having to, for this
Implement it
process
now.
of meeting with Kate, absolutely. We could do it next week, whatever it is. But if the purpose of this amendment is that we're saying that we're going to wait and use this newly developed tool for this year's evaluation, is that what this amendment is saying? I'm not clear on that.
No, no, it's, any finalized document would have to be voted on.
Right, and then use this year?
That would be the decision at that time.
So we're not deciding that one way or the other.
Right.
No.
For instance, if somebody does the,
These guys may not have any revision.
Right.
I don't know.
these unkind animals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against, learning and developing.
It has to be tied to the Connecticut standards.
So basically, just so I understand,
Great City Schools deals with districts across the country. There's different laws and regulations. For example, there's states that can give 10-year contracts. There's states that can give 5-year contracts. Everything has to be based on the Connecticut competencies for superintendent.
just so I can finish, just so I understand what we're voting for, because maybe I don't have to vote no. We're not saying that we're taking time to develop a new tool that we will use on this evaluation. Instead, we're saying we want to meet to develop a new tool possibly. Whether or not we use it, we're going to vote on later. Is that what we're saying?
See, no.
I'm
What
unclear.
we're saying is, we're gonna meet with CAVE, we're gonna show them this. They're gonna give us input about its appropriateness, how comparable it is to other districts similar to us. And I think the new people are not certain.
This is very unclear. I'm sorry. I'm not a stupid man, but I can't get it.
Other just point to.
Go ahead.
Also, this is the first time I'm seeing this document, how it's done across. This is
This was,
a bit of a pedagogical exercise for new board members. Also, we want to keep relevant to what's in Connecticut and be abreast of what's happening with similar urban districts with greater cities.
Right?
The key point, and Mr. Sokolovic read it in the contract and it's in the Connecticut statute, is that guidelines and criteria mutually determined and agreed by such board and such superintendent. So to immediately become apprehensive of changes that may be beneficial, that would recognize something that is not in this document, would also be a disservice. Also, if, like I mentioned, every district in the state of Connecticut, the way they have their superintendent varies on different criteria. I would like to see what similar sized districts select their superintendent in the same particular manner as Bridgeport, how they evaluate theirs.
So
Is that point in comparing a kindergarten teacher to a high school science teacher? If anyone can catch that analogy, is I want to make sure the criteria is relevant, to level, and appropriate. And it has to be mutually agreed on. That's what's in his contract. We're going to enforce the contract because that's what the contract's there for. So all the terms should be followed by is that it's mutually agreed, and also state statute requires it to be mutually agreed. So we can go through the process with Kate, and you may hear something that's like, that should be included. And it probably will be absolutely no problem for Mr. Chestani to provide that and be able to provide that information. But just because we're finding that out, we don't want to highlight it at all. I just want to be open-minded to how to properly evaluate the criteria in front
I
of.
think what's being missed is that this is something that we did do. We did have discussion and we did do this. And my only point, and I think I'm making it clear, is that while I am open to growth and improvement, I also feel like it's a bait and switch to, even though it may not be, may be a benign thing. Nonetheless, I feel like it's a bait and switch. Here's what we're evaluating you on. We discussed it. We came to good terms with it. Oh, and by the way, at the last minute, we're going to change it. Like, that's my issue. It just doesn't sit right. That's all.
Right. And if I can add,
And include and acknowledge. I mean, there's plenty of evaluations that have 25 questions on the test. It's not going to be applied to your score. This will tell you which one they are. Of course, he'll know which ones that I guess can be just a gold sticker on top of the grade. But
Well, that's something interesting. So we could have things, but not incorporate them into our evaluation.
yeah, we can have it in the evaluation and just say that these are additional items that you will be evaluated on next time. And so far you're on a good track, or so far you'll need to catch up. But I mean, it's nothing set in stone right now. And so I think being able to have access just to see, because as mentioned, maybe nothing will change. So I don't think it's necessarily detrimental. I mean, if something was like knocked out of the ballpark, oh, no, we're just going to ignore it completely. Oh, good for you that you were able to make all those changes. It's not on what we're evaluating you for this year. Does that sound like it's in the interest of fairness?
I think that what you're now saying is in line with what I'm trying to say, that it's a good idea to develop and grow and modify and improve the instrument, as long as we're not using those modifications in our evaluation as far as scoring and ranking.
It could be That's what I'm saying, just see what comes up and how we will implement it, and whether we will implement it will be determined at a later date.
So I just need to know exactly what the motion is. I still don't know what it is.
So the motion would have to be establish the motion allows for board members to provide additional input into how this evaluation document is structured. People are free to contact CABE or any other organization that they feel would be a benefit in that regard. And in the meantime, I'm just going to arrange a workshop with them about superintendent evaluations in general. And they will probably be able to give a lot more clarity in all of this. Okay?
Mhm.
And we're going to do that within 2 weeks.
Okay.
But any modifications that people come up with, they're not automatic changes. Any finalized document that you voted on by the full board, it would have to be agreed to by him, as has been repeatedly pointed out. It has to be a mutual thing. If he feels something in a modified evaluation is unfair, he's not going to agree to it. So
I just want to state for the record, can agree upon a modification. There's nothing that I'm concerned about my performance. But just understand, the tool is the tool. Whether the teacher evaluation tool, for example, is the same, regardless of whatever grade level content area you teach, the evidence changes. Good teaching is good teaching. It's about leadership. I am fine with it. The last time Mr. Sokolovic wanted to add more about advocacy on funding, we added it. But there needs to be focus areas. You can't have 42 things to focus on during the course of a year and expect to grow and grow. But we focused on these areas because we felt as a group that these are areas that were critical to the Bridgeport community and the Bridgeport public schools. Want to take something out and add a different bullet, leadership point, I'm fine with that. But this, this is your right, Mr. Skalvik. Doing it like this just creates chaos.
Look at this.
It's chaos, and no matter how hard you work and how well you perform, it still always ends up like this. And that's discouraging from this point of view, from this standpoint. I'm just going to put that on the record because this is what the public sees. This is what the staff sees. And that's the portrayal that it's put out, that we cannot even agree upon a rubric for scoring for evaluation.
I'd also like to add to the discussion, not about the motion, if I can.
Mhm.
I just hope that we can all be mindful of the timeline
Right.
and that this doesn't get pushed out and pushed out and pushed out, because that doesn't send a message of support to our superintendent. That we want you back. We thank you for wanting us, because, he wants us too. And to have this potentially drag out and out and out, I think is something we should not have happen. We should avoid that. So that's my words about that.
Well, I think
Mr.
Mr.
Macaron.
Castani should begin to prepare his presentation.
He doesn't know what that's going to be because we don't know how we're changing.
I would suggest that he goes through the evaluation as we see it now and prepare his presentation so we don't have a backlog. We're not going to be waiting.
Going on vacation on July 14th, and I'll be away. If it's not done before July 14th, then it'll have to wait until later on sometime in August.
But you could prepare based upon the current instrument.
I've been prepared.
Right. Not 90 minutes, not 90 minutes.
No, it's not gonna be 90 minutes. You guys wanted information, we provided a lot, I provided you a lot of information. And then I don't know how much of it was actually digested. I'll provide it again as well with the narrative in some specific areas of leadership that I think that is important for you to read. If you read it.
I don't care how long it is. This is our first. And I would be very happy to see what you have to tell us.
I think the main thing is that it's impactful.
Right.
Has to be.
Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I hope nobody interrupt me when I'm speaking, please, because I interrupt nobody. Did we want me to stand it back? With us? Not back, sorry, with us? Yes. Not 3, 4, 5, they can be 10, 15 years. Because I'm a witness of many years and why he took 4 hours for the Bristol school. He's perfect? Nah. We are perfect? Nah. He make mistake like everybody. But yes, we want him, stay with us because he's for the short time he's here. I'm witness for so many years why he do. I'm witness what the other former superintendent, they don't disappear. They don't make decisions. It was a mess. It was terrible, disgusting. I was not board member yet. So go back and forth. I'm not saying nobody is I'm agree with everyone. Your guys is okay. I'm listening. It's a little mess. And I don't want the people outside, the parents, staff see, oh my God, what's going on with the board? They don't make a decision, something nice. Yes, that we need help to get K and grade seated school. Yes, we can get information, but we need to make a decision because go back and forth. Everybody say something different. It's like try to make a puzzle and it's not going to be fit. It's like everybody has a piece of cake and everybody have small one, medium and large. We have to have the same piece of cake for everyone. So for me, Mr. Chair, I don't know what we're going to do and then everyone shall make a decision what we're going to do so we can keep this forward. We cannot go back and forth. Everyone here know what Mr. Testani do for such a short time. But extra miles he's put for Bristol School and for everyone. So I just, for the record, I want this situation, make a nice decision what we're going to do. And everybody agree. I'm not talking you guys did not disagree. I respect your decision, but that's back and forth. Who say, he say, we need that, yes, no, it's not, it don't look nice. And I really, really hate, piss me off when people say when board members, they don't make decisions. They don't know what they're doing. So that's my opinion. I don't want nobody get offended, nothing like that, but they want me to decide here with us, yeah, many years. Because this gentleman did so many things that other ones they don't do. No more comments, no more questions, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Brown?
I just wanted to add to the conversation. The reason why I don't oppose of this particular dialogue is because this is what we talked about last year when we were here at this very same place. We talked about one, be it that we were in COVID, how that looks different for his position. We also talked about residency, how that looks different for this situation. So that's why I want to make sure that anyone and everyone that want to have a say to, the evaluation that we have it, because that's what we talked about. We talked about how we would evaluate him based off the situation that was in front of us. Now it's a new year, things have changed, questions may come up, whatever the case may be. So I just want to make sure that we all have that opportunity to be able to add to that. And that's why, I'm glad that we had this meeting because this is what we said we would do. We would come back after COVID, in COVID, and make these kind of, add these kind of questions and also create these different type of decisions that we want to make moving forward with this contract. So this is what we said we would do, and we're here.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes.
Castillo?
So I have a question and I'm going to ask the question and let whoever answer, but I would like the floor back after. I just need an answer to this question before I share. So this rubric, right, was created by who? Or where did this come from?
This was created by the board.
Okay.
And it was based on, I can't think of the name of it. Do you recall what this thing is called?
There are certain domains that are relevant to superintendent evaluation. Some things were altered. For example, in one of the domains, Mr. Sokolovic had added, he wanted something about advocates and school funding, so that was added under one of the domains, though.
Okay. So this rubric is probably pretty close to what other superintendents are being evaluated by, but not exactly.
There could be variations in what domain. So maybe one district may not find family and community engagement a priority in one particular year, and they substitute it for something else, another domain. But that's why next year, somebody may say, you know, family community engagement, you've developed yourself to a point where you're exemplary. That shouldn't be your focus this year. Just continue, maintain, focus more on this domain here, which we haven't held you to a standard the past 2 years. So those are, you know, obviously you don't want to have every domain because it's impossible to be, but that may be one that comes off the table and substituted for another one. You do that at the beginning of the year when you want to agree upon, so that is something that you work toward to improve. That's why one usually has nothing to do with the other. But
Okay, so what I think is that we do need to do an evaluation as a board. I think it's important for the new board members, but also for the sitting board or the existing board members, previous board members, to get a refresher from CABE. I think that's important. But I also agree with Lombard on the point that these changes should maybe be for future years, not for this year, because this was the criteria that was agreed upon to evaluate him for this contract renewal. Is that correct? So no changes then should.
For this year.
Right, for this year.
Year of his work.
And so this contract renewal is going to ask for a 3-year extension or 3-year contract. So will we do this again in 3 years?
No.
He'll still get an annual evaluation. Is that correct? Okay. So then I think that, hold on. We need to do an evaluation as a board. We should get training from CABE in advance. This rubric should remain as is for this year. And the results from this evaluation is what should be used to determine modification to his contract, if any modification needs to be made. So can we pick a date for when, because Mr. Testani is going to be leaving for vacation July 14th. So negotiations for his contract.
So if we're talking about reconvening this group in 2 weeks, that's June 1st.
Yep.
We'll slide in a CABE workshop about superintendent evaluation between now and then.
On June 1st, will we be doing the evaluation?
No, I think we will finalize the evaluation. We'll finalize this.
Finalize it as in there will be an opportunity to make modifications?
I don't agree with that, but it seems like there's a majority that want to.
We never voted.
But we never voted.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to,
Already a motion on.
On the table that hasn't been voted on.
what is the motion?
How many times, Mr. Chair?
Can you repeat it?
Okay, so that we would reconvene to potentially revise this evaluation in 2 weeks, which I just established is June 1st. In the interim, I'm going to get a workshop together with CABE for us to talk about a proper superintendent's evaluation. What does it look like in other districts comparable to ours, et cetera. People are free to, on their own, contact any other organization that they think can give them guidance. But whatever the case may be, there's a 2-week window to do that.
And what's not said in that, because it's not, there isn't a decision on that, is whether or not that revised rubric will be used for this year's evaluation.
Right,
It
but
may.
that could maybe be finalized on the June 1st,
Frankly, now that we're talking about it,
depending on what happens over the next 2 weeks.
frankly, more we're talking about it, more in favor of maybe voting no and just getting CABE in here and using their guidance to make these decisions. Instead of taking a hard line that we're going to make changes. Let's make that decision with them. If we have a workshop with them, that too is a public meeting and we can take an action there.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Right.
Maybe it's better to just vote this down, sit with CABE, let them provide some guidance.
Yeah.
Give their opinion on how appropriate this is.
Right.
Maybe that'll make some people feel a little more comfortable that this is the path to take. Some other path is the path to take.
Right. I feel like there's this big resistance to any potential change with the automatic assumption that just makes me feel like there's something being hidden, that there's something wrong.
Oh, God.
No, we need to stick to this because
Excuse me, Miss.
I'm speaking right now and I have the floor, please don't disrupt. And it's clear from the law and it's clear from the statute that it has to be mutually agreed and that this isn't anything negative. Like I said, we can find additional positives. And how we want to implement it can be determined. Our resistance, or what seems like from some board members, to be flexible with a standard that may be more beneficial, or it may point out certain things that we may want to add. And like I said, extra credit, bonus, star, not included in the evaluation, but may be included next time. That failure to want to put in any kind of extra work.
Okay.
That is my concern. No, I'm not saying it to be offensive. I'm saying there's multiple different factors. And this is my interpretation, not to be taken personally towards anybody. But I just want to be open to other options. And I want to be educated on what decisions I'm going to make. And I don't want to be negative towards our superintendent at all. Like, my choice to educate myself so I can evaluate him and evaluate him fairly and just shouldn't be looked at as, oh my God, we're crossing the line because we've always done it this way. Therefore, we won't change it. It's not meant to be negative at all.
I just think that if my boss told me 6 weeks before the end of the year, that this thing that we agreed on, this thing that, okay, here's a scenario. Say I have a new boss and my prior boss and I agreed on an evaluation and I spent the year working to achieve the things in that evaluation. And then I got a new boss. And 6 weeks before the reviews take place, he said, you know what?
Actually,
I want to do this.
Yeah.
I think that's inappropriate. If I was him, if I was an employee, I'd be offended. It's wrong. It's not about, newer board members being able to explore what is done elsewhere. You're perfectly free to do that. And I'm willing to get CABE in here to give some examples. But I think to just stop this and potentially do something completely different at the 11th hour under the guise that maybe there's something going on that we don't know about.
Something hidden.
I mean, this is just, look, here's the thing. Why don't we just adjourn this? I'll get CABE in here and we'll have this discussion with them and they'll be able to provide some clearer guidance. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, before we take that motion, I don't want
I
to.
make a motion. Second by Ms. Allen.
Discussion.
improper motion.
All in favor?
There's a motion on the floor that has not been disposed of,
Motion on the table that wasn't voted upon, Mr. Chair.
and further discussion.
You want to vote on that motion?
Yes.
No,
Okay.
nobody
Let's vote on the motion.
The question, and I still got discussion to have on the motion. No, I will not stop.
I'm not talking about the motion to adjourn. I'm
Then
talking about the motion you seconded.
I'm not ready to vote on it because there's still discussion on the floor. Don't get upset and lose track of the proceedings.
I'm not losing track.
You're ready to vote on the motion.
We're all over the place.
So let's get back to the motion.
We have a motion on the floor. What else do you have to say about this? Seriously.
Seriously. Now we're getting sidetracked, getting defensive. Ms. Baptiste Perez did not say there was something untoward going on.
And
This is a problem.
That it was hidden.
It says there's perception.
I'm willing to educate myself.
Perception of that. The perception is, right now, this board thinks somebody's gonna come and try to get Mike with a gotcha.
Try to what?
Try to get Mike with a gotcha, evaluate him on something that's
Not as
totally
dramatic as
ridiculous,
that, Joe.
and try to impinge his character or get
He
rid of
said,
We sat here talking about, before Ms. Baptiste came in, 7 people said, I support the superintendent 100%. We're ready to move. I said, I need the data before I make a decision.
we said, fine.
Now we changed the narrative to the district looks at it like we can't agree on it and we don't support the superintendent. That is not the narrative. Narrative is we support the superintendent, but we want to evaluate him through a dispassionate eye. I want to look at him based on the data and not our feelings. And when the city sees us doing that, this city got a terrible reputation for corruption. Terrible, terrible reputation. We got to deal with perceptions. You want to talk about perceptions? This board is perceived as going along with the superintendent each and every time. If for the first time I could vote on his contract, because I think personally he's doing a good job, but I cannot vote on his contract if we don't do it in a dispassionate way
We agree.
for the public to accept.
Agreed to do.
And this is the
And to
quantitative
say
measure.
that the new board members, when it's written in the contract, that the new board members have absolutely no input. You got 2 new board members say they don't want to do it, they don't have to add a question. You don't like the question, new question, Ms. Baptiste, for us?
Yeah, but
You vote it down at the
it
end.
took a turn, Joe. It took a turn.
No.
It took
All
a
right,
turn.
so you said
I
what,
want somebody to tell me, of the new board members, which one of these evaluation items are you not agreeable to? What is, this is, I read this afternoon. I think this is an awesome
So do
evaluation.
I.
And how many other superintendent contracts have you evaluated?
I haven't evaluated too many.
All right, well, congratulations.
Okay, well, thank
But
you.
we all need to be.
I got the floor now.
okay, he's got the floor.
It's
All right.
I
All
have
right.
the floor.
the same way you respected me when I had the. floor.
Okay,
I respect it.
everybody stop. I get it. Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Take a vote.
Roll call.
Myself, John Weldon, no.
The motion is to take 2 weeks, come back with any changes.
Oh, okay.
Contract after.
I'm voting no. I think we could just have a meeting with Cabe. I don't think we need to take 2 weeks.
No.
Joseph Lombard, no. Sybil Allen,
No,
Erica Castillo,
no,
Michael Macarone,
No,
Bobby Brown,
Yes.
Christine Baptiste Perez,
Yes.
Joseph Sakalovic,
Yes.
4, 5 no.
Albert Benningham.
Oh, Albert Benahan,
Yes.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 5 votes no, 4 votes yes. Motion fails. Fair motion. to
Mr. Chair,
adjourn.
before we adjourn,
There is a motion
I got a quick,
to adjourn on-
I got a quick motion.
But you, John,
Gotta-
are you still going to schedule the 2 weeks?
I'm going to schedule a meeting with Cabe.
I got a quick unrelated motion before we call motion to adjourn. Or my motion is to meet with the attorney, the board members, and the attorney to discuss negotiating strategies with Superintendent Sestani's contract before we sit down with Mr. Superintendent.
Okay.
Second?
But is before the evaluation or just before?
No, before we enter into the
We
contract.
enter into, that's fine.
Into any contract. Okay. But actually, you don't need to do that.
I feel I do.
Yeah.
It's been seconded. We're going to vote on it.
Okay, it was made by Mr. Sakalovic, seconded by who?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Baptiste Perez. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Did you have a question?
no,
Thank you.
Any abstentions? Motion to adjourn.
Second. Oh, so.
Second.
All in favor?
I.
Opposed? Time is noted as being 6:40 PM.
Told you.
Everybody?
Yeah, you got to wait.
Good night. Enjoy your meeting.